The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for OpenView Labs webinar, 7 Salesforce Hacks to Help Your Team Hit Quota. My name is Cece Bazar, and I am joined here today by my colleague, Blake Harris. Hey, Blake.
Hey, Cece.
And we also have on the line Michael Hanna, President of Hanna Strategy Group. Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So before we jump into the meat of the webinar, just a couple of quick housekeeping items that we like to go over here. The webinar is going to run for about 45 minutes in length. There'll be 5 minutes at the end for us to go over any type of Q&A. And if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to send them in to us. Also, we get this question a lot. There will be a recording of the webinar, so please stay tuned. We'll be sure to post that after the webinar is over, and we'll be sharing the deck for all of you to refer to at the end as well. So we're thrilled to have Michael here today. Michael actually joined us for a webinar earlier this year around compensation. So if you haven't had the opportunity to take a look at that webinar, feel free to do so. It's a great webinar. And we were talking with Michael. He has a whole host of experience around Salesforce. And we said, Michael, what should our next webinar topic be? What are the things that people are craving to hear about? And we started talking about all the hacks that he's been able to implement to help his teams that he's worked with get to quota and use Salesforce to the best of its ability. So just a quick little background on Michael. He's been the Salesforce owner for companies such as Eloqua, Datum, and our own company, Exinda, here within the OpenView portfolio. So he has a ton of experience with implementations, creating playbooks, custom use cases with Salesforce, and we're very lucky to have him here. So let's go ahead and jump right in.
Thank you very much, Cece. It's my pleasure to join the OpenView team and everybody on this webinar. Thanks for trusting me with your time. These 7 Salesforce hacks are items that I've come up with. They're minor modifications that make major improvements to sales productivity. These are things that I see rarely implemented in a customer's Salesforce instance when I'm introduced into it. And I find that these little things make major improvements. I want to talk about the title for a second, 7 Salesforce Hacks to Help Your Team Hit Quota. And I want to highlight this aspect of help your team hit quota. This is key. If your Salesforce Sales Cloud implementation is not helping your team hit quota, then why do you even have it? It's very, very easy for us as Salesforce administrators or managers to get lost in the weeds of Salesforce.com and the workflow rules and the validation rules and the page layouts and the field pick list options and all of the details. It's important that we discipline ourselves to periodically take a step back and look at the implementation, look at the changes that we're making, and ask ourselves this simple question: is this helping our team hit quota? We can't lose sight of that purpose. So the purpose really when you implement a Sales Cloud is to help your reps hit quota. How? By keeping them organized and informed and accountable. That's really what Salesforce.com is helping them to do in terms of its pure CRM capability. Helps them be organized and informed, being informed on their business, being informed on their territories, their pipeline. I see that as the window into their business. And then also being accountable and establishing healthy habits around that. I see that as the mirror. So these 7 hacks we've organized into 2 categories. Insights that enable informed sales execution. That's the window. Getting those insights that will help them be more effective through their sales cycles. So we'll show you 3 hacks within that. And then the second category is accountability that fosters good habits. And you'll see 4 hacks there that help to really facilitate that accountability, not in a negative way, not in a way that says, I don't trust you, but in a way that helps them to keep organized so that they can manage their habits. And then finally, we'll give you 3 bonus tips. How to waste your sales team's time. These are things I've seen over and over again that companies that I've worked with are really good at wasting their sales reps' time with specific things they do in Salesforce. So if you want to really waste your team's time, I'll show you 3 really good ways to do that.
Well, Michael, we all know that this is easier said than done, creating a window and a mirror for your Salesforce, and any manager on the line here knows that this is something that all reps face. It's a challenge to get everyone to adopt Salesforce the same way. So I'm sure everyone's chomping at the bit to learn a little bit about what these hacks are to make this adaptability even easier.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's dive in. So first we'll zoom into insights that enable informed sales execution. The first hack deals with lost reasons and lost stages. So when you lose an opportunity, what information are you capturing around that loss? Think about this, an analogy for a second. What's the first thing that people say to you when you tell them that you lost your keys or you lost your phone? It's a really annoying question because it's overly obvious. You say, oh man, I lost my keys, and they say, where did you last see it? And it's the same thing that you want to know in Salesforce.com. Usually when I enter the organization, the client has lost reasons. They're tracking the reasons why a deal was lost, but they don't track the stage from which it was lost. And that gives you an incomplete picture and often a misleading picture. So it's important that you know where you last had the opportunity before it was lost. Let me give you an example. Suppose there's a lost reason in Salesforce and you've captured the reason: the price is too high. So if you have an influx of opportunities that are lost for this reason, what are you going to do? You're going to go and you're going to target your training for your sales team around maybe negotiations. But you might be making a false assumption. It is possible that the reason was lost, that the opportunity was lost for a high price in the negotiation stage, in which case that training is appropriate. Let's teach them some negotiation skills. But if you look at example number 3, it's also possible that the price was too high, but the opportunity was lost earlier in the sales cycle, perhaps in the needs analysis stage. That's a very different way that you're going to tackle it. You can now go and do negotiation training all day long, and you haven't fixed the problem, and you've lost your investment. And so it's important that you understand the combination of both why the opportunity was lost and where this opportunity was lost. So how do you make this happen? For every one of these hacks, we're going to explain why they matter, and then we're going to show you how to make it happen. Some of them get a little bit more detailed and technical. We're not going to read through the details, but the presentation will be available and the video will be available so you can reference them. In this case, it's pretty simple. When the stage is set to close lost, you want to auto-populate the lost stage with the prior stage value. So you've got a custom field called lost stage, and you've got a workflow that automatically populates it with the prior value from the stage when it goes to close lost. So now you're tracking that. Now you're tracking that, and then when you have lost it, when the salesperson sets it to close lost, you also want to capture the reason and make sure they're required. So you'll use a validation rule to make sure 2 things happen. 1, they populate the lost reason, and in this case it's a pick list, so you can categorize an aggregate. But you also have lost reason details, which is a free-form text field, so they can add some color and context and a little bit more detail around that loss. And again, you use a validation rule to make sure that that is not blank when it's closed lost. So 3 things that you'll ensure there that will give you a good fulsome insight, as you can see in the screenshot on the bottom right.
Yeah, Michael, I think the key here is auto-populate. In the essence of kind of not making more work for our sales team and increasing adoption, I love that you're auto-populating this automatically rather than having the rep need to remember to plug it in as soon as they close lost a deal. I think that's going to be key. And also looking at this from a marketing lens, this is great insight to have as a marketer. There are so many ways to create nurture tracks off of these reasons, or even do research into personas or win-loss analysis with this free-form text field.
Absolutely, and this gives you powerful reporting insights afterwards. I remember doing analysis on one of my clients, and we were able to look at when you're able to understand both the reasons and the loss stage together, we identified that the majority of their opportunities that were lost in the latter half of the sales cycle were lost because certain actions were not taken in the earlier part of the sales cycle. For example, if they've lost the deal in the negotiation stage, it's not necessarily because they're bad negotiators. It may be because they didn't set up the value proposition effectively earlier on in the sales cycle. And when you're trying to talk dollars and cents is the wrong time to bring in the value proposition.
Yeah.
So this next hack will also touch on some automation as well, and it deals with the lost date. So picture this example. You've got an opportunity with a close date of March 1st, 2015. October 20th, 2014 comes along and you lose the deal. So naturally you set the stage to close lost. But the close date still says March 1st, 2015. Now January comes along and you want to run a report that says, show me all the deals I lost last year. Well, if you run that based on the close date, you're not going to identify that opportunity. So you're going to get an inaccurate report. You can run a report based on opportunity history, but those tend to be a little bit more quirky to work with. But what you can do is you would set a workflow rule that automatically, when the opportunity is set to close lost, automatically timestamps the close date with today, the date in which it was lost. And now it's very, very easy to report based on the close date. You always know that whenever you have something that's close lost, then the close date represents the date in which it was lost, not the date in which they expected it to close before it was lost. So it gives you much more accurate reporting. Again, another very simple hack.
I love this one. It's so simple, and it's something that all sales managers deal with, especially when it's coming time to pull details and information for a pipeline review. And this is so easy to do and to change within your Salesforce. And it gives you so much clarity around all the opportunities that your team is working.
Yeah, and the good thing about both of these last two hacks that we went through is that they're very tactical, but they have a huge strategic impact. So, I know that there are a lot of Salesforce admins on the call who are kind of thinking about career development and what they want to do next. This is a great way to boost your recognition within an organization, implementing these kind of things, small little tweaks, but have a big impact on your sales strategy and can really inform your company's direction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Two things we've tried to keep in mind with all of these hacks is they're very simple to implement, yet have significant implications. And then the second thing is they simplify the user experience for your sales reps. They don't complicate it, they simplify it. So the next hack then, custom competitors. This is a very, very powerful one and is slightly more complex than the last one, but still relatively simple. Here's the deal. Think about the native competitor functionality in Salesforce. They give you this competitor object. It's related on the opportunity. You can go into your app setup, as you can see on the right side of my screen here, and under opportunities, you can customize the competitors. The only flexibility you really have here is the ability to select which competitor values are available. But you don't have the ability to add other attributes or other fields around that competitive relationship on that opportunity. You can't track other specific items. You just pick the competitor. Well, I'm going to show you a different way that opens up a whole new world of insights, collaboration, and relevance. This image on the bottom left of your screen shows you a custom competitor object that's been created, and this is related on the opportunity, so just like the native competitor object, except we've been able to customize whatever competitive fields we want to. If you want to get complex and get into complex sales methodology and start figuring out how different strategies on how you're going to beat the competition, if you're going to be flanking, or what your political advantage is, you can get as deep or as simple as you want. You can add whatever fields you want to this object. In this case, we've added three simple fields: a checkbox indicating whether or not they're the incumbent on the deal, whether this competitor won the deal or not, and a description. Gives you a lot more detail than what you previously were able to have. Now, when you implement this, there's something even more powerful that automatically happens. Look at the competitor 1, 2, and 3, and you'll notice they're underlined, indicating that this isn't just a drop-down of competitor names that they've selected in this custom object. It's actually a lookup field on accounts. And so what we've done is, before they populate this, we've taken all of our competitors and created an account in Salesforce.com, an account record for them, where type equals competitor. So this is now a lookup on those account records. And what that does is, when you now look at the account record for that specific competitor, and this is the blue box on the bottom left that just appeared, you get an exhaustive list of competitive deals where you can see all opportunities where this competitor was involved, what stages they're in, which ones were lost, which ones were won, which ones are still active, and all of the specs that you specified, those custom fields on the competitor object, are now all available. So you get a total profile of where you win and lose and why against this competitor, and you're armed so much better now to go up against this competitor. A lot of times I'll see sales teams emailing one another, hey guys, I'm up against a certain competitor, anybody have any advice? Are they able to do this and that against us? And so this just kind of gives them a home to be able to collaborate. The other beautiful thing about having a competitor account with these insights on it is you can now begin to collaborate using Salesforce Chatter around this account. You can follow this competitor account, you can start to dialogue around this, you can share with each other certain strategies and tactics that have worked against this competitor, call out, hey guys, be careful of this, they're using this strategy against us. Your product management team can go to that record and can post documents, whether using Salesforce content or simply notes and attachments, so they can post you some competitive decks. And so you begin to get a full collaboration around this, as well as much deeper insights in your reporting against those competitors.
I think this is great. A lot of companies that we work with have battle cards for all of their competitors, but what happens is those battle cards become they're completely static. They're not being updated regularly. People find that it's hard to use them, hard to get the right information, but this gives you almost a live battle card where you're getting real-time information from your colleagues who have maybe come up against a competitor recently, and being able to infuse that into your conversations and infuse that into the sales process. This is a huge win across the board.
Absolutely, and it's only going to be as good as the extent to which your sales reps use it. The amount of insights that they put in or the amount of insights that they'll get out.
For all of you sales managers out there or Salesforce.com admins who are facing the challenge of getting your salespeople to live inside Salesforce, this is a great way to do it. Get them totally engaged within the app itself. It's brilliant.
Yeah, especially because, as Michael mentioned, one of the most frequent emails amongst the sales team is, hey, does anyone have any info on competitor XYZ? I'm up against them right now in a deal. Well, the sales manager chimes in and says, hey, look in Salesforce. Here's a complete list of all the deals we're up against that competitor on and where we stand.
Yeah, very powerful. All right. So how to make it happen? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but you can refer to this in terms of it'll give you some step-by-step guide as to what to create, in what order, and how you can actually configure this in Salesforce.com. And that brings us into our next session. So we went through the 3 hacks to get the insights. Now we're going to go into 4 hacks that foster that accountability, healthy habits that are built around Salesforce.com. So the first one is to capture forecast commitments and comments. For simplicity's sake and for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to use an example of an organization that has quarterly quotas and has a weekly forecast call. So capturing forecast commitments and comments. Let me just make a statement about this forecast. The forecast is the credibility metric for the sales rep. This is the metric that says, does my salesperson have a handle on their business? And it's more important that they are able to accurately forecast their number than it is that they forecast a good number. In other words, I'd rather you tell me that you're going to come in at 90% effective and you do come in at 90% effective versus you tell me you're coming in at 100% effective and you come in at 90% effective. You have greater credibility in that first example. So if this is the credibility metric, it's important that we understand it, that we understand its trends, that we measure its accuracy. So what we want to do here is, typically on that Monday morning forecast call, everyone's going to go around and share, hey, this is the number that I'm committing for this quarter based on the pipeline that I have today. And typically the sales managers will write that down in a spreadsheet, and then they'll refer back to it on next week's call to see what was the change. And it's a very manual, laborious process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's very, very easy to facilitate this in Salesforce. You simply, here's a little screenshot of it. You create a custom forecast commitment object. It's not related to anything, it stands alone. And it's 3 simple fields: the date in which you're submitting the forecast, the number that you're submitting for that period, and some commentary so you can add some color and give some context to your number. Here's what changed since last Monday. There's a particular deal that makes up 30% of this number, so we're really counting on it. Another deal is a risk. We might be able to backfill it with these other deals. You tell the story. And every week, you take 90 seconds as a salesperson to submit this number. And now what you've done is you've given the organization and yourself the ability to view your forecast trends. It may not necessarily change every week, and we know that the accuracy of your forecast will improve as you get closer to the end of the quarter. But this gives you very, very good insights. Insights like, think about as a sales manager, you know that Johnny is a sandbagger. You know he's always holding back business. But it's one thing to have that gut feel that tells you Andy's holding something back. It's another thing to say, you know that for the last 3 quarters, 4 weeks away from the end of the quarter, Andy has consistently been sandbagging between 22 and 18%. You now have visibility into that accuracy because you're capturing these on a weekly basis in a way that you can report on it, and not only report on the trend, but report on the accuracy against the actuals once the quarter's changed. Now you can go back to Andy and coach Andy around doing more accurate forecasting, or simply when you adjust your forecast to make your presentation to your executive colleagues or board of directors, you know that you're adjusting Andy's forecast by about 20%. So it really gives you those insights, and you're not depending on gut feel, and it gives you a central home to manage these forecasts. Very easy for you to roll it up and use this information as a prep before your Monday call. But most of all, it's very simple. It's very non-intrusive. 90 seconds per week.
Yeah, one thing we preach here to our portfolio companies is accountability, and that a lot of times comes through having either reps or managers type up weekly reports or even daily reports of what they've done or their forecast. And I think this helps to enforce that too. Just getting it into Salesforce and actually typing it out and making someone accountable for it, I think just goes a long way down the road.
Absolutely. And you know what? It also changes the conversation on that Monday forecast call. Because if you think about it, they usually say, Johnny says, I'm calling 1.2 million for the quarter, and then you as the manager will ask Johnny 10 questions just to validate that 1.2 million. Well, now what's happening is before you even get to the call, you know the number, you've got the context in the commentary, so you're not spending that time. You can now utilize that time to strategize. Okay, great, you're calling 1.2, your number is 1.4, let's figure out how we can close the gap. Let's strategize how we can make sure deal A comes in since it makes up 30% of your number. Let's secure that deal. So it changes the conversation to conversation that's focused on closing business rather than just catching up and validating.
So, Michael, real quick, one question on this from the audience is, how would you use this with native forecasting components in Salesforce? Are there any synergies there?
No, great question. So the native forecasting, I think, is very powerful in Salesforce, especially when you're using customizable forecasting. It does give you the ability to capture those forecast commitment numbers. It'll give you a home for that 1.2 million. It'll capture, you can store your submissions so you can report on the trending, and then you can also have the manager override the numbers. But what you cannot do is you don't have that commentary. So you don't get the context. You get the numbers, but you don't get any context behind those numbers. And I think for sales reps, they like to be able to give some context around that. 1.2 by itself doesn't mean much. 1.2, but I know how much of it is at risk, what the dependencies are behind it. That's a more meaningful update. And the native forecast capability does not give you a home to manage those comments with those weekly updates or however frequent that they are.
Okay,
So
got it. That makes
I think
sense.
the natural question behind that is then am I going to be tracking this in two places because we're already using customizable forecasting, and now am I going to ask them to submit it in two places? Well, you can keep the customizable forecasting as the weighted forecasting that's just based on your forecast categories and your probabilities, and then use this separately because remember, very non-intrusive. It only takes 90 seconds per week and very easy to just have it report directly into your weekly report.
Great.
The next one. So here's how to make it happen again, how you can configure this simple custom object. This is one of my favorite ones. This is I call it the I don't want to be on this dashboard. You can give it a name that's relevant to your organization, but this is a dashboard that is literally a leaderboard for all the things that you don't want to happen when you're managing your pipeline and your activities in Salesforce.com. Here are 5 items that I like to track on the I don't want to be on this dashboard. These are literally leaderboards. I'll show you a screenshot of it in a second. It's literally a leaderboard by sales rep. Get their chatter photo in there, really highlight them, but they don't want to be on this dashboard. Number 1, impossible opportunities. These are opportunities that are open but have a close date in the past. That's impossible. You can't say, I will close this deal yesterday. It's impossible. It makes no sense. So they need to go in through that list and they need to make sure that they either update the close dates or disqualify or lose the opportunity, whatever they need to do, but it's impossible to have an open one with a close date in the past. Stuck opportunities, where the stage duration is greater than 90 days. It's been in that same stage for more than 90 days. You can customize the number. It doesn't have to be 90 days. Make it whatever's appropriate to your sales cycle. But this is enough in my example to say 90 days is telling me this opportunity is stuck. There may be a legitimate reason. It may legitimately be a long sales cycle. Somebody may be undergoing some sort of a significant delay in their business or in their personal life that's causing this opportunity to be stuck. It's not that your number always has to be 0, but it should be pretty low, and you should be able to explain every deal that appears there. Neglected opportunities. These are opportunities that haven't been modified in the past week. And if you look at the blog post that was recently posted, Confessions of a Salesforce.com Addict, you'll see suggested daily habits there. And one of the habits that it suggests is that you touch every opportunity every day somehow. And so this is just indicating if you haven't touched it for more than 7 days and it's neglected, it appears on the I don't want to be on this dashboard. Neglected leads. Leads older than 2 days, I might even justify 1 day. If it's older than 1 or 2 days and it's unread, it appears on the dashboard. And then lastly, opportunities being winged. These are opportunities that have no next step indicated, and so they're not taking a planful approach. They haven't locked down a next step with the client before they hang up the phone, etc. They're just kind of winging it. There's no next step indicated. So these are 5 common components that you would see on this dashboard, and sales reps want to avoid being on here. It's not, we're having fun with this dashboard. It's not so much about making them feel ashamed or embarrassed in front of their colleagues. Sales reps would actually find this dashboard very helpful themselves because sometimes, an opportunity look at the impossible opportunities as an example, an open opportunity with a close date in the past. Well, if you're managing a high volume of opportunities, it's very easy for that to happen because you don't put that close date in the past, you put it in the future, and time just went on and it's still there. So very, very easy to miss that unless you have something that actually highlights it for you. And so this is actually a very helpful tool for the sales reps as well as the sales managers. So what does this look like? Here's an example of the dashboard. And I want to highlight that every one of these components, I want you to have 2 versions of it. The one on the left shows you the number of opportunities. So looking at sales rep 1 under impossible opportunities, they've got 22 opportunities that are open with a close date in the past. That's important to know. But even more important to know is that those 22 opportunities represent $715,000 of pipeline. That's the real so what behind this. You got to look at those 2 numbers together. If I just told you 715,000, you don't know if that's one big opportunity or 22 little ones. Mm-hmm. So you put the 2 together side by side.
I think this dashboard is fantastic, and I what I think is pretty cool about it is that you can take this and you can modify it depending on the type of team that you're working for. So the suggestions that Michael has for this dashboard is perfect for a closer or for a team of maybe ISRs. But if you're working with a team that maybe just does prospecting, so a BDR team or an inbound lead qualification team, you can modify this dashboard so that it is applicable to the KPIs that your team's being measured against. So I love this, and I think that it's something that everyone should walk away. If you're adopting one thing from this webinar, this should be it.
Yeah, beautiful comment.
And Michael,
you can totally make this your own.
I know you mentioned that this really wasn't meant to be used to shame reps into maintaining Salesforce compliance, but I would absolutely use it that way. In fact, and I've actually seen dashboards like this be emailed all the way up to the CEO using kind of scheduled dashboard emails, and these things need to be taken seriously, especially when you attach a dollar amount to them. So I wouldn't be ashamed to do that.
And again, it goes back to accountability and visibility. And so having these types of reports visible to everyone, it just makes everyone all the more accountable for what they're doing and also what they're logging in Salesforce. It makes you live by the golden rule. If it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. And it's easy to get away with that, but this makes it so that it's not.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. It's the window and it's the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, display stage qualifiers. Really, really simple, but big time saver. Let me give you an example on this. Actually, before I display that screen, let me give you an example. You have 2 sales reps, each with an opportunity in the proposal stage. The first sales rep put it in the proposal stage because they validated that they have budget, they understand the procurement process, they know that the decision makers in that process have already bought into the value proposition, and they've in fact already allocated resources to a scheduled time frame to facilitate the implementation. That's in the proposal stage. The second sales rep put it in the proposal stage because they emailed them a proposal. That's the only reason. The likelihood of those 2 opportunities coming in are very, very different. The first one is a much more credible opportunity, but in the pipeline and in the forecast, they both look exactly the same. The issue in this example is that this is the subjectivity in what does it mean to be in the proposal stage. And this solves that problem. What you do is you define stage qualifiers for every stage. A lot of organizations already have this. If they don't have it, it's important to put it in writing, even if it's obvious. Put it in writing, because even obvious things are interpreted subjectively. So you want to put it in writing. In this case, we have a stage called Stage 5, Solution and Value Validated. And in this case, here are 4 key qualifiers that make it true. That yes, this is truly in Stage 5 because these 4 things are true. Well, what we've done is this is really a 1-page cheat sheet where you have this qualifiers listed for every stage. Very simple 1-page cheat sheet. And in fact, I have a client where I've added a button on the opportunity, so if they click that button, it automatically pops up that 1-pager. Taking it to the next level, every time they change the stage, this stage qualifiers field displays an image of, and it's literally just a screenshot of the subsection of that 1-pager relative to that one stage. So if they back this up and put it in Stage 3, it'll display the qualifiers for Stage 3. And all it's saying is, hey, heads up, Johnny, this is what you're saying about this opportunity by putting it in Stage 3. And it removes the subjectivity, and it keeps everyone on the same page in an objective way. What does it mean to be in a particular stage? The way that you would implement this is, actually, if you want the formula for this, you can email me. My email address will display at the end, and I will send you the actual formula behind it. You'll essentially need to upload an image into Salesforce.com for each of the stages that displays the qualifiers, and then you can display a formula that selects which image to display based on the stage.
Excellent.
Number 7, the Boolean pick list. This one is so simple, but it's so powerful. It's a very beautiful thing. Let's take a look. Boolean pick list. Well, most people would think, come on, Mike, a Boolean pick list, really? Just use a checkbox, man. Keep it simple. Well, here's why I don't do that. A checkbox is always populated. If you do nothing with the checkbox, the value is false. So you never know whether the sales rep actually ignored it and it just defaults to false, or if they thought about it and said, this is false, and made it false. You don't know. And so there's no such thing as a required checkbox because it's always populated. It's always false until it's true. But a yes-no pick list defaults to blank. And if they ignore it, it's blank, and you know they haven't touched it. And if they say no, you know it's a no. It's not maybe no, maybe blank. It's no. And so it really, again, removes that subjectivity from it and is very, very decisive. And now you can make it required field if you need to, but it really gives you a definitive understanding of the value, and it's not easily bypassed. So the Boolean pick list, a small thing, but very, very powerful. I don't need to tell you how to implement this.
Excellent. All right, so
those are the 7 hacks.
Yeah, we've run through the 7 hacks. I know we're coming up on time here, but let's jump into these 3 bonus hacks because I think these are great pieces of information to call out as they are a huge waste of your sales team's time. And then we'll jump into questions if anyone has any that they like to.
Yeah, chances are
here.
Awesome. Yeah, this is the part of the presentation where you might be sitting there going, oh man, this is so me. Because almost every organization I've worked with has these issues. How to waste your sales team's time. Here you go. Number 1, create as many nice to have fields as possible, right? The smaller the scroll bar, the better. You can never have too much data. It's always good to capture as much information as possible, especially that nice to have information. It's not critical, but it's nice to have. Listen, this is the CRM equivalent of hoarding. You'll lose the truly valuable data in the sea of just-in-case data. Don't do it. Number 2, make lots of fields required. There is nothing more frustrating. Okay, there are a few things more frustrating, but this is a very frustrating thing when somebody's trying to save a record, they're on the gun, they're short on time, and every time they click save, they get a new red error on the top that says, sorry dude, you forgot another field value, and then they got to scroll down on the screen to figure out which one it is, and they don't even know what the field means, and then they make up an answer just so they can move on, or even, or just as bad, they don't even bother. Mm-hmm. It's a horrible thing. If you're going to make something required, make sure it's absolutely necessary. Number 3, make everyone an administrator. Everyone's an administrator. That means everyone has the power to change everything for everyone else with no accountability behind it. This is a beautiful, beautiful way to foster a culture of confusion. I've been in organizations where they've had 4 different ways of tracking competitors because everybody thought they had a better idea, and they went and did their own thing. You can't get any insights from that. You're just, everything you put into the system, you cannot benefit from it. So make sure that you centralize your administrators, whether it's a person, whether it's a committee. They're people that understand the domino effects of making changes, and you're able to control that. So these are 3 beautiful ways to waste your sales reps' time.
Michael, these are great. And, you know, we here at OpenView work with companies that are typically at the expansion stage of growth. And we see a lot of these problems pop up when we're working with them on their Salesforce.com, any type of implementation or audit there. And I think that all of these things, making tons of fields required or making everyone an administrator, it happens a lot because when a company is at an earlier stage, it's okay. There are fewer people using Salesforce. But when you get to a specific stage of growth, you kind of have to go back in and pull in the reins some. And it might hurt some people, break some hearts in the meantime if they don't have their administrative access. But it's the best thing you can do for your company and the best thing you can do for your reps.
I think every single company that I've worked with has this pending project that nobody ever gets to that says we're going to clean up our Salesforce. That means they're going to get rid of the custom fields, so clean up the page layouts. They're going to delete 1,100 of their 1,200 reports that are in their unidentified reports section. Everyone's got this pending cleanup project that they never ever get to.
Yeah. Well, now's the time. Well, we have a couple minutes left here, so let's jump into, we have a few questions that we'd like to answer. Blake, I'll let you moderate here.
Yeah, so Michael, I think a lot of the questions are around folks who don't use enterprise editions of Salesforce, so they're not able to create some of the workflow rules that you're suggesting, especially around the hack about lost state. Do you have any other workarounds, perhaps using a formula field to achieve that lost state hack?
The lost stage?
Yes, yep, an auto-populating
this is a situation where they can't use a workflow rule to auto-populate it. Yeah, there are two ways. One is you can put a validation rule that enables you that you can't save the record unless you populate lost stage. All it means is you're going to manually populate it, and it'll just prompt you because you try to save the record and it's not there. So you can use a simple validation rule to require the lost stage. The other way is it's not as clean, but you still can report on it even if you don't use this. You'd have to kind of report on it offline, or maybe use two different reports to get the full picture. But when you change the stage, Salesforce will automatically keep a log of the change of the stage. Who changed the stage field from which value to which value on which date or time, and so you can export a list of that and report on it, and then you can do the correlation between the lost reason and the lost stage. It's not as simple as with the workflow rule, but it is an alternate way to get to the information.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. So the next question is, if you were to just implement one of these hacks after this webinar, which one would you do?
It very much would depend on the situation for that particular company. If you're in a highly competitive space, I would go with number 3. If you're in, it really depends on the situation of your company. Each one of these, I think, has strong value. The I don't want to be on this dashboard, especially if you're in a highly transactional space, or where your role is just a high volume of high transactions. The accountability around the habits is critical. So the I don't want to be on this dashboard visibility, I think, is very, very helpful.
Yeah, for me, I think the quickest one is the Boolean pick lists, and everyone that's here right now could go back and do that in 5 minutes and make a big impact.
Absolutely.
Well, Michael, we can't thank you enough for joining us today and for sharing all these with us.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I know you had a special offer kind of for our webinar attendees today. Do you want to just run through that real quick?
Sure, yeah, thanks for opening that up. So this is an exclusive offer for people who registered for this webinar. Remember, I said all of these are very, very simple to implement and can be done relatively quickly. So the simple offer is this. It's so simple that I can do for you for a small $1,000 and from start to finish can have it done for you within 24 hours. So if you want me to go into your implementation and actually implement all 7 of these for you, it would be my pleasure to do so. Just email me at michael@hannastrategy.com, and I'll be happy to extend this offer for you. Another next step, if you wanted to, there's a webinar coming up where I have the pleasure of speaking with Ringlead in August, called How to Inspire CRM Adoption. So it takes a broader look at some best practices to make your reps actually want to use their CRM system rather than feel that they have to use it. And I think it complements this webinar quite nicely. So if you want to get information on that, feel free to email me as well.
Excellent. We
That's
definitely
great.
recommend people do that.
Well, again, Michael, this has been great. I think speaking on behalf of both CC and I, thanks again, and all the attendees as well. It's been great having you as part of the OpenView family, and I hope people reach out to you and take advantage of your expertise.
And feel free to reach out to either Blake or myself with any questions that you might have. We're always available via email or on Twitter. I'm at HowBazar and Blake is at bharris. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and happy selling.
Thanks, Blake. Thanks, CC. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Take care.
Bye-bye.